Baby's real jealous because he's not reading the book that I'm reading. That's why. We're not reading an audio, we're reading an ebook. He's just got his face right in front of it, so I actually can't film. Yes. So I started reading Wolfsong by T.J. Klune. I didn't think that it would be a book for me because of the way that it's written. It's not your typical describe everything in a linear fashion kind of way. Like, it is linear, but it's more like a series of vignettes. And each of these is like a paragraph or a couple paragraphs long. Sometimes it's just dialogue. Sometimes it's describing a larger moment. And I don't know, it really sucked me in. Wolfsong is from the point of view of a human named Ox. It starts when he is in his early teens, and his father just left, so he gets a part-time job with his father's employer, who owns this mechanic body shop. This guy's name is Gordo, and Gordo ends up being like a pseudo-father to him. And then some werewolves move in next door. You don't know that they're werewolves at first, but it's fairly obvious from the name of the book that it involves werewolves. I'm only halfway through, and it's already spanned like 7 years because of these vignettes as Ox's relationship grows with the family as a whole, and as it grows with one of the family members in particular, Joe. And I really like the narrative. It's very poetic in a way, with the way it's showing things, and I'm very connected with the characters, and it's starting to get, I'm about halfway through, and we're starting to get a little bit more intrigue and danger. Like, there's a little bit of a hint towards it because Joe, his past is that before he met Ox, he hadn't spoken in over a year because he had been kidnapped and tortured by this villain. And now we're starting to get some of the danger of the fact that they are werewolves in this world. We're starting to get some of that danger coming in, and it's just everybody's all intertwined, and it's really interesting, and I want to read it right now, so I'm going to. Goodbye. I finished Wolfsong yesterday. I absolutely did not want to stop reading Wolfsong so I could update you as to what I thought about it, because it was just that good. I really liked the way that it was written, even though it isn't the typical thing that I would have chosen. I loved the characters. I do feel like it kind of changed in the middle. Like, the beginning was really about Ox's development and his friendship with Joe, and then Joe starts courting him, and then it takes like a complete left turn when Joe's past catches up with them, and then everything gets very dangerous. And I'm not necessarily saying it's a bad thing, but it was kind of a weird shift for me as a reader to go from something a little bit more typical and lighthearted to something that got very dark very fast. That being said, I loved Wolfsong. I want to move on to the second book in the series, which is Ravensong, and I will be doing that very shortly. But today I am going to the doctor's, so I've chosen something out of my Audible library, which is A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. I have not read this book before. I started it this morning, and I like it, so I'm going to continue with it. So far, the only thing that I really know about it is that the main character's name is Kel. He is some sort of magic wielder, and he is from a different world that is connected to our world, which I believe is called the Grey World. I'm pretty sure he stepped into the Regency era, just based on the fact that it's 1819 and George is insane and his son is the Prince Regent. But not for much longer if it's 1819. So overall, I'm hooked so far. That's my era. So I'm interested in reading more about what's going on. I assume that this magic wielder is going to go back to his own world at some point and take us out of the Regency era. But you never know. He might stay there for a little while. I'm just interested in seeing how this unfolds and reading more about it. I will give you an update when I come home, assuming that I'm not super tired and in pain. Here's to hoping that the doctor will be able to give me some answers, or at least try. So I'm a little bit out of it today. Yesterday I went to Ottawa for my wrists and the doctor couldn't help me. And it's not my wrists that are really hurting me today. It's my ankles. Again, while we're downstairs, someday I hope to be able to go back upstairs to my lovely library. It is Wednesday night and I intend to finish off the day by reading. I read a little bit more of A Darker Shade of Magic yesterday while I was in Ottawa at the hospital. I then put it down, but I think that I am interested enough about the story to pick it up again. The reason I put it down is it's a reading pet peeve of mine whenever an author uses sexual violence against women to make a point. In this case, it was introducing a character who I think is going to be a recurring character. She dresses up as a gentleman and picks pockets at night, and then she goes back to this boat where she's renting a room from this creepy guy who owns the boat, and she gives him a cut of whatever she happens to steal. And she was a little bit light on money, so he tried to take it out in something other than coin. And I just feel like that is such a lazy way of moving her from that boat to the inn where she's obviously going to meet Kel. If the author needed to do that, there were so many better ways. It didn't have to be rape. But of course, the author used it. Yeah, I'm angry about this. So I stopped it. I'm giving this book and this author one more chance before I return this book. I swear, I have no tolerance for this sort of thing. The character in question ended up killing the guy and she wasn't raped. If she was raped, this book would already be returned back. No, I'm not putting myself through that. Now, the reason that I'm going to continue reading this book, despite all of that anger, is because I really like this world that is being shown to us. So I got a little bit farther in the book, so I understand it a little bit more. The book started with this character stepping through this gate from a different world, from Red London into Grey London, which is, from what I can tell, basically Regency England in 1819. Then he goes back into Red London, which is where he's from, which is a magic-rich world. Our world is obviously stripped of magic altogether. And then there are two other worlds, or there were two other worlds. There's a bit of a cautionary tale about Black London. Black London was so greedy for power that the magic basically consumed them like a plague. So it destroyed London and it destroyed the rest of that world. And then there's White London. I'm just at the point in the book where he's stepping into White London and he is, and like everything is like, there's ash falling all around. It's all very washed out in color because the magic has leached all like life and color, I guess, out of this place. And everybody's starving. It's not a good place to be. Red is obviously the place to be, and then I guess gray is a better alternative to white. Because although gray has its problems, at least they're not magical problems like white and the now dead black. So that's what I really like about it. There's also some political intrigue coming in because Kel is one of the very few people who can walk in between these worlds and use these gates. He's one of the very few blood magicians. He is basically revered in Red. He's adopted into the royal family and given a place of honor. And White has their own blood magician whose name is Holland. And I haven't seen a whole lot about him, but he kind of comes across as this mysterious, maybe even evil character. I'm not entirely sure based on the world that he's from. But they are the only two that are left in like a dwindling sort of world where there used to be a lot of them. People used to be able to walk through these gates all the time, but now it's down to the two of them, and I feel like there's going to be a lot of political intrigue in this. I feel like it's going to be interesting, and for that reason, I'm going to continue reading it tonight, and hopefully I get far enough in that I decide that I definitely like this book and I want to finish it, or no, that the way that the author introduced that female character is just not in any way something that I want to continue looking at. So I will see. The rest of my evening, like I said, I'm a little bit out of it, so the rest of my evening is going to be reading and resting my ankles and resting the rest of me. And hopefully tomorrow will be a better day. Maybe I'll even be able to film from the loft. I made it! Yay! It's Thursday, which means that today's the day that I'm going to end this vlog and continue on to the next vlog. That feels so weird to say. I should get used to it because that's what I intend to do next year. What I want to do next year is a vlog for every book that I'm reading as I'm reading it, and then wrap-ups. I don't really make TBRs because I don't typically stick to TBRs. So I continued to read A Darker Shade of Magic last night. I didn't hate it, but it's not super gripping me. Like, I find that the reason that I'm not completely enthralled by this book is because it keeps changing perspective. So you'll have a chapter from Kel, and then you'll have a chapter from somebody else, and then a chapter from Kel again. And I really only care about the Kel chapters right now. I'm 3 or 4 hours in now, and I've decided that I'm going to put it down for a couple days and then pick it back up and see how I feel about it over the weekend. I'm going to be doing another weekend reading vlog, so I will let you know over the weekend if I happen to pick it back up or not, what the final verdict on that is. I am now moving on from A Darker Shade of Magic to a Lynsay Sands book that I haven't read yet. I've been reading the Argano series since I was 15, 16. It's been a while. It's been quite a few years, let's put it that way. And I love it. Like, I haven't really gone back and reread it because there's always a new one coming out. And that's how I get my Argano fix. I think she might even be close to book 40 in this series, honestly. This is a series of paranormal romances that is her twist on vampires. They're not technically vampires, they are immortals. The mythology of her vampires is that Atlantis was far technologically advanced from the rest of the world, so much so that they had gone on to create nanobots. Instead of programming them specifically to target illnesses, like let's say they were trying to cure somebody with cancer, instead of just targeting them to say this is what a person without cancer looks like, they just said this is what a healthy female looks like, this is what a healthy male looks like. And then they injected people with these nanobots to cure them. But because they didn't have a specific thing to cure them from, and with the UV rays from sunlight and aging, etc., there's always some damage being done to the body. So the nanobots continually repair the body, and they need more blood in order to do that. In Atlantis, before it fell, that was done with transfusions, but then Atlantis fell, and the world was not as technologically advanced as Atlantis, so the nanobots ended up evolving them so that they could prey on mortals to get their blood in order to continue to run with the nanos. So they developed fangs, and they developed the ability to control mortals or younger vampires. these books always hook me. They're paranormal romances, so like that's the backdrop, and then each of these books typically has some kind of a suspense element and a large romantic element. The book that I'm reading is called About a Vampire by Lynsay Sands. It is the story of Holly and Bricker. Bricker is an enforcer for the council. He goes after rogue vampires because there are rules so that they don't like reveal their existence to everybody, and so that they don't prey on humans, and because with the invention of blood banks, it was strictly forbidden to feed off of the hoof, as they call it. So he's going after all of these rogue vampires, and as he's like disposing of the bodies in this crematorium, Holly, who is a temp to come in and do the taxes for this crematorium, ends up witnessing that, getting super scared because there's these people that she doesn't know who are like throwing around dead bodies that are decapitated. And so she runs, but she was carrying these big scissors, and she ends up falling and spearing herself with the scissors, which is not something that a mortal can survive. Bricker had already tried to control her and wipe her memory of that event, found that he couldn't, and realized that she's a potential life mate for him. So he immediately turns her, and I'm now at the point where she's woken up. She's a vampire, but she doesn't believe it. And they're trying to explain it to her, and Bricker's like failing. Like everybody who tries to explain to their life mate like what this is fails spectacularly, and it's hilarious. That's one of the hallmarks, I think, of Lynsay Sands' writing, is that it's always really funny, really light, but then it has that suspense element to each of the books, that element of danger that brings them together, and I really, really enjoy them. So as you can tell, I'm super excited to read this book. It's been on my TBR for a long time, and I love Lynsay Sands so much, so I feel like it's just going to be a really good time today. And I'm in my library! My library! We love the library, and I have a dog here, but he's kind of sleeping, so he doesn't really care that much. I will update you later as to how this book is progressing, how I am enjoying it, I'm sure I'll love it, and other things like that. Here he comes. Here comes the baby. Hi, babes. So I did it. I read an entire book in a day. That's not an uncommon occurrence. It happens all the time. I liked this one quite a bit. I love the predictability of most romance novels. I love knowing that there's always going to be a happy ending. And I love knowing that when I pick up the book, there's definitely not going to be any cheating. But I also enjoyed what she did with this one. At the beginning of this book, the main character, Holly, is married. And Bricker turns Holly without realizing that she's married, and she is his life mate. And he has to figure out how to woo her without her breaking her marriage vows. So it spent a lot more time on the emotional aspect of their getting to know each other and forging that connection. I loved the way that it ended. It ended really satisfying for both Holly and her husband, and she ends up with Bricker at the end, which is the romance expectation. I would certainly recommend this book. It's even a good spot in the series to jump in if you've never read one of her other books, because you have some recurring characters from earlier books who have met their mates, but it's not a plot point. Most of the other characters, like Gia and the twins, are unmated, so you get to look forward to their stories further on in the series. And like I said, it's in the middle of two of those arcs, so you don't have to get caught up in who the villain is, because there is no villain that they're going after, but it still, at the same time, introduces the idea of enforcers and the suspense element that will be in future books. So yeah, overall, I think I really, really enjoyed that book. So that means I have read 2.5 books this week. I'm very pleased with that. I'm not sure if I'm going to finish the other half of the book. We will decide over the weekend. Tomorrow, when I decide what the heck I'm going to be reading this weekend. Stay tuned for that. Until next time, happy reading. I thought you might like to be on camera.